Okay, welcome to CW Coffee Talk. I'm Bob WV7W, and today I have a very special guest. You may know her as the POTA Babe. So please put your hands together for Teri, K0 or KO4 WFB. Welcome, Teri. Thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome.
So it's a pleasure to have you. You know, we've been friends for a good while now, and I finally get to have you on the channel. You know, actually, you've been on before. You and Glenn did a thing with me at one point. But we didn't really talk about you and CW. We talked about CW innovation. So let's talk about you a little bit. How long have you been a ham?
Believe it or not, Bob, I will celebrate my 3-year anniversary the end of this January,
Wow.
which is unbelievable. I look back and I go, where did the 3 years go?
well, when you get to as far as I've been a ham since '96, so I'm coming up on 30 years.
Wow.
But you know, you've done an incredible amount in your 3 years. I just, you know, I look at folks like you and some of the others that we've seen in our classes that are new and have done so much, and it's just it's amazing and it's great. You know, it really shows how vibrant our hobby is. It's, you know, for a long time people thought, oh, ham radio's dying. I don't think so. I think it's made a pretty good resurgence. So when did you start your CW journey?
I did not start my CW journey until about 7 months into the year. It was July of that year that I actually really got on the bands. I had done a little bit of work with POTA. In fact, POTA was my introduction. And I can tell you that story if you want to talk about POTA in a minute. But I got started
Yeah,
with that.
we will get into POTA in a minute,
Okay. Yeah, it was about July of that year, and I was in a class at the time, and I had an instructor, and she kept saying, get on the air," which you hear me, of course, harp on now. I mean, that's my tagline, get on the air and keep having fun with CW. And she got me on the air, and I just have never stopped since. I mean, it's so much fun. I love CW.
So POTA was your gateway drug into CW, as it is for so many. You know, I think that really has been a real, you know, kick in the pants for CW, because I think that once they got rid of the requirement for it, you know, a lot of people kind of got away from it. And so it's really interesting to see how many people are interested in, I think, POTA, SOTA, and some of the other activities that we'll talk about here in a minute have really given it a new life. And people are starting to realize how much fun it is. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
It is. You know, when I first got licensed, I got my general and I reached out to my local radio club, the Coastal Area Radio Society. And man, I knew zip. I knew nothing. And I was looking for somebody just to tell me, because I'd already taken some CW classes, but I didn't know anything about equipment, antennas, anything. And they have something called the No Work Wednesday Club. And it's a bunch of retired guys pretty much that get together and they do POTA every week. And I came out and I watched an activation. And of course, they were all doing SSB and was like, wow, this looks like a lot of fun. And the third time I was out there, the president said, next week, Teri will be running the activation. I was like, oh, okay. And I did. I showed up and I was a little tongue tied at times, but I got like 77 contacts, including somewhere in South America or Central America. And I was hooked. I was hooked. So I didn't actually do any CW activations until later, but that was my first foray into ham radio was with the POTA.
Yeah, you know, and I think a lot of what has driven, and I was half expecting you to say that that the real ambassador for CW POTA, Tom Witherspoon. I thought that might have been your foray, because a lot of people, that is what introduced them to POTA, and in some cases POTA and CW. And I mean, you know, I'd been on and off trying to get better at CW since the early 2000s, you know, with several failed attempts, you know, always had an interest in it. And then it wasn't until 2009 I started to really kind of get serious about it. I built a K2 and I built it CW only. And then later that year I built a KX1. And so, you know, I had a little bit more interest there. And then I kind of got that kind of ham radio kind of, life got in the way, and I didn't do it for a while. And it wasn't until right before I moved out to Washington that I really started getting serious about it, and that's but anyhow, so that's cool that that a club got you going with POTA. So what
Mhm.
got you going with CW POTA? How did that happen?
Well, that's a good question. I think by that point, I knew CW. In fact, I'm not really sure why I picked CW. When I started studying for the tech license, I think I found an app like Morse Mania, and I started playing with it, and that was my gateway drug. And then I ended up taking a class, and then because I didn't have the equipment at the house, I just sort of sat on it for a while. But I think I was doing enough CW by then. I was getting active in the SST, active in SKCC. I was playing in some QSO parties, and I thought, I really need to do this with POTA, even though I hadn't done my first activation, and that was very nerve-wracking, but I got through it. And reading sites like Thomas Witherspoon and other people like that really inspired me and said, I can do this. Why not? And I love POTA. I'd already done it with SSB, and it's like, let's go for it. Let's go for CW. And now, of course, I'm like 99.99% CW. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. You've got to find that part of ham radio that's your passion, and I think
Mhm.
most of us that are in the CW realm, that's become our passion. And it's not that I have anything against the other modes. I just choose to do CW instead, and it's not that CW
Mhm.
is better. It's just that that's what we like to do, and that's a good thing.
Mhm.
If you like to do
Mhm.
digital, then do digital. If you like to do sideband, do sideband. Whatever. There's people that like to do satellite stuff. Never been an interest for me, partly because the cost of getting into it's pretty high, and also it's something that's never resonated with me. The HF stuff. Even from my earlier ham years was something that always interested me. And, I started off with PSK 31. It was my primary thing. I was a Tech Plus and
Mhm.
then eventually got my general. And so that was kind of my thing, but I always wanted to do CW. And it wasn't until, more recently that I got good enough that I could kind of make that my only mode. But
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
so, besides POTA, and I know you've mentioned a couple things, but besides POTA, what CW activities really kind of get you excited?
I like participating with the SKCC, the Straight Key Century Club, uh, partly because they really helped me on my journey as I became more comfortable with CW. I recently achieved the rank of senator, and that's something that
I
I've
was
taken.
just gonna say that, you took the words right out of my, that's what I was leading you into. Yes. So just,
Sorry.
that's quite all right. Just the other day, I
um,
saw the notification of that. Normally I would just, respond on the groups.io and say congratulations, but I knew we were having this talk and I was like, no, I'm saving it. you
I
know,
appreciate that.
for those that,
um, but
go
but
ahead.
those SKCC really helped me along the way. They got me
Yeah.
started. They got my feet wet because I started in the SST, but I got sort of bored with that pretty quickly, and that felt. I was like, okay, I know how to do this. What's the next thing? And the SKCC was the next thing. The other thing that I like about SKCC is that they support newer ops. They slow down.
Yeah.
They take their time. I had a couple people tonight that had no letter after their number. And as you were probably going to explain, with SKCC, everybody is assigned a number and you work through successive levels, first centurion, then tribune, and then senator. Well, I had several people tonight that were obviously newer ops. They had a number that was like 27,000 or 29,000. And so I slowed down for those people because, again, we're trying to build people's confidence. We're
Yeah.
trying to encourage them. And SKCC does a great job of doing that.
It absolutely does. So my numbers is pretty low. It's 5779 because I got it
Mhm.
in 2009, but I didn't do anything with it. And I think I made a couple contacts then. I didn't do anything with it until like 2020. I think was when I first started really getting busy with SKCC and started doing the weekend sprints and stuff like that. And it's a
Mhm.
ton of fun. And it really is something that, it's a known pattern like POTA. It's a known pattern to the QSO. And so
Mhm.
it's not something people need to be afraid of, because and just like you said, they'll slow down for you. Kind of the nature
Mhm.
of a straight key is that there's no set speed. So it's not like, you can go as fast or as slow as you're capable. And
Mhm.
so if somebody comes in slow, you can really slow it down and not just add Farnsworth, which is what you have to do with a paddle. Yeah, I was going to
Right.
say, the trip to get to Senator is pretty lengthy. I mean, I'm a I'm a T myself, and I'm on the road to getting towards Senator, but I'm not even halfway there yet. So
Right. The other thing that SKCC did for me is they have the Marathon Award, and I went for that because there were several other people going for it at the same time. What the Marathon Award allowed me to do was to become more conversational with CW because I was already in the CW Innovations class. And that gave me a way to take those skills and to practice them and to work on them. Because, like you said, you can just do exchanges if that's what you want. You're a beginner and you're starting. But if you want to push your skills, you can have rag chews with people. So you can do a lot of different things within SKCC.
yeah, and the rag chew part of it, I think, is underrated. By a lot of
Mhm.
people, they're like, oh no, get into contesting and all that. I know that the CW Academy, they really push you towards getting fast so you can do contests, and that's fine if that's what
Mhm.
you want to do. Contests have not been something that ever really appealed to me. um
Mhm.
and so in and the whole ragchew thing, that's a little bit more challenging because it's not scripted. You have to really,
Right.
but it's also not anything to be afraid of, because if it's
Mhm.
conversational and you miss a few words or you miss a whole phrase, it's not the end of the world. Who cares? You know?
It's not. And the other thing you learn is if you really didn't get something and you just don't want to go back to it, well, just change the subject and go to something else, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Or you could, if it part of it, it sounded like it was something interesting. You can always ask for a repeat, and
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. So it's, but yeah, SKCC is, we both have been doing the K3Y event. Matter of fact, you just got done
Mhm.
with another.
A shift.
Yep, yep. And this is my first year doing it. I mean, I've done the straight key month from a hunter perspective, but this is my first year activating, and it's been a lot of
Mhm.
fun. I really enjoy it, and we'll do it in the future as well.
Mhm.
But
I would suggest to people who are newer ops, if you want to do something like that, it's a great way to get your feet wet with working a pilot because people are generally going to be patient with you. I think I'd been on the air in July that year and I signed up for a couple K3Y shifts. I did a little bit later in the month because I didn't want to be inundated to begin with. But I found that a great introduction to working with pileups and meeting other people on the air and running a frequency in an event like that. And it was a lot of fun.
yeah, I'd say that kind of stuff, as well as POTA, takes that pile up fear away. They're not
Mhm.
actually, as the activator. Initially it seems scary and daunting. It's like, oh, what am I going to do? I've got all these people coming in. But you own the frequency, as far as like
That's right.
so you can, all you got to do is hear enough, or even if you don't, you can fake it. Eventually you'll get
That's
enough to
right.
where you can get one person answering you back, and then you move on.
Mhm.
And and then
Mhm.
you know there are people that can actually pick out multiple ones, and they're like making mental note of the other one so they can call them after
Mhm.
that. But that's certainly not me. But
What you were talking about, there's so many different things to do with CW,
there is.
just in general, not just, ham radio. Something that I've gotten involved in this year because I want to push my abilities. If we're going to grow, we have to step out of our comfort zones. Is I'm starting to get involved in CW nets. I dabbled in that a little bit my first year when I got on the air, and then I had to step out because I had some other responsibilities. But I've got two nets that I'm jumping into right now. One is the Sideswiper net on Thursday nights, and the other is the Century Club net, which is on Monday evening. So that's a whole nother challenge that because you got to kind of pay attention, who's talking to you. But that's been a lot of fun and is stretching my abilities as well.
Yeah, I get on it's a West Coast net, and we're on 80 meters now. In the summertime, we do 40, but it's called the Bob net.
Mhm.
And I didn't join it because it was the Bob net. Actually, my friend Dan, K7NXL, is the one that got me into it. But it's been a lot of fun, and yeah, it does kind of force you to pay attention. Now, the nets you're doing, are those just kind of rag chew nets, or what are they?
Let's see. The Century Club Net focuses on RSTs, and
Okay.
and they have actually introduced me to a program called Net Logger. I've never used that before. In the other nets that I've been involved in, it's all been audio. I mean, you're having to hear everything. This actually has a screen that'll show who checks in, and you have to check in via on the air.
Hmm.
But once you're in there, you can see the information about the people and kind of who's next. You can what you're hearing, you can also see on the screen, which has been an interesting experience for me. The Sideswiper net, they exchange RSTs, but there's also a little bit of jibber jabber back and forth between you and net control. The net that is taking a hiatus right now is the OMIC net, and that one I was on before. They're taking a hiatus until April, and they were more involved with jibber jabber back and forth. You'd share your RSTs, but you would also talk a little bit more to the net control. So they're a little bit of a hybrid, but yeah, it's interesting that each net has its own different personality, and you kind of have to learn what the jargon is and how that net is particularly run.
Yeah, the Bobnet does not have a net control at all. It goes from
Oh my, that sounds free form.
well, it's only a handful of guys. It's usually 5 or 6 guys, and we go from north to south. So Dan's
Okay.
just a few miles north of me, so he goes first. Thank goodness. And then it's me, and then there's a guy in Pendleton, Oregon, a guy in Nevada, and then the other 2 or 3 guys are in California. And
Okay.
and then so the first round is the weather. You give the weather,
Mhm.
and then the second round is kind of what are you going to do during the day, and that's it. That day, and then that's it. And so it's a pretty brief net, and it's just, but it's a good opportunity to get on there and really, it's since it's not really scripted.
Mhm.
Although the weather is kind of somewhat formulaic, although uh, much to the one guy, Bob Moss, W7WOW, he's a pilot, and so he wants it in a standard format, but everybody kind of does it in a similar fashion, but it's not, no, it's not exact. So you have to pay attention. And then, and then of course, when people are talking about what they're going to do that day, well, that's conversational. That's not, you're not gonna just know what that is. So, it does force you to pay attention. And I think that's something that it really is a skill, is to be able to try and stay focused on it, and then allow something to pass by and not let that derail you to the point where it's like, I just give up. I'll wait till they're done, till I hear 73 or
Mhm.
whatever, you know, and they're like, no, get back in there. And it takes practice.
Right.
And that's one of the
Mhm.
things about CW that, is, since it is a skill, it almost seems, people tend to look at it as like a rite of passage, but it's just one of those things that once you get to where you can really embrace it and use it, there's a sense of accomplishment, and it just makes it even that much more fun.
Mhm. Mhm. It never gets old. It never
No,
gets old to me.
no.
You get on the air and you don't know what's going to happen. And even if it's formulaic, I mean, if it's POTA, your mask could collapse, or my dog all of a sudden sees a squirrel, or even in the shack, the propagation changes. You never know what's going to happen. And I think that's the thing that makes it exciting, at least for me, to always get on the air, because it's unpredictable.
Yeah, well, and even though the exchanges are somewhat formulaic, there's still that, you're dealing with propagation. You and I both
Mhm.
mostly do QRP when we do it, which is,
Mhm.
there's another benefit to CW over sideband, is you really can get away with 5 watts and make it work. Not that it can't be
Mhm.
done with sideband, but it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it will
Gonna be
be.
tough.
I'd like to try that eventually. I haven't done that yet. Usually, when I go to do an activation, I'm so busy with CW that by the time I'm done with it, it's like, I don't, not. Not that I hate SSB, but
No.
it's like, okay, I've already done my activation and I got it in, and now it's time to go.
My first opportunity to do sideband for POTA was Dan and I had gone to Lake Easton State Park and we camped there. So the whole time we were there,
Mhm.
we were in a POTA, site. And so
Mhm.
I did bring my FT891. And so I did set that up and I did, once I'd had my successful CW activation, um, I did set up the radio and I did do that. And the main reason for doing it wasn't that I necessarily wanted to do sideband, but to get those people that do just sideband an opportunity to work me that
Mhm.
might not otherwise get to. And so I
Right.
didn't get as many of those as I would have thought, but I got a few. I got a few. And then
Mhm.
when I went out with my friend Rob and Lisa Morrow, went to Sacagawea Park, which is my closest park to me.
Mhm.
Um, they were doing sideband, and I did a video on it. That was actually the opportunity I had to get Rob his first, not only CW POTA contact, but his first CW exchange, and he did pretty darn good. He was doing just straight key, and so I'm working with him to get him going and get more active on it, and eventually we'll get him into the CW innovations as well, because he has a desire to do it, and I think it's going to be great. So yeah, it's nice to be able to see people that want to do it actually be able to get to do it. That is so rewarding. That's
Mhm.
one of the things about getting involved with CW innovations. It's really been wonderful. So let's talk about equipment a little bit there. So when you're out there doing POTA, you use a KX2, correct? Is that
That's
predominantly what you
correct.
use, or is that all you use?
And that's all I use. And his name is Craig
Yes, I
because
was
we're on
gonna.
a first name basis.
So that was one of my questions. Is like, how did that happen? How did you get a name for your for your
Well,
radio?
my family has this funny hobby of naming things. Like all our cars were
Yeah.
named. My car right now. Let's see. My son just got a car. This is a big deal. He got his driver's license, and he has a Honda Accord Hybrid 2022,
Holy
and it's
cow!
Hayai. I know Hayai Akuma is its name, and it's some Japanese name for like fast demon or something like that. I know you're going, oh my word, here we go with the POTA
Well,
Babe stuff.
here
But
your 16-year-old has newer cars. I mean, our newest car is a 2016. So, and my truck's a 2007.
well, he loves it. It gets good. It'll get good gas mileage.
That
And my
will.
ex-husband, that's what he was pushing, and I was like, okay, that's fine. That'll work. But anyway, we have a habit of naming things, and I know that Thomas names some of
He
his
does. He
rigs and stuff like
does.
that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that. And oh, actually, I think I did. I thought, I should name this KX2. I mean, I hang out with it, several times a month and travel with it and stuff. So its name is Craig, and that's because I think of this cool Australian guy talking to me. I'm like, cool. All right, so your name is Craig. So Craig and
I
I,
love it. I love it.
you never know what's going to happen when you're with the POTA Babe.
Well, that's
So
true.
Craig and I, we go do POTA, and I've been happy with him. I did start out with my FT891. I used to take it with schlep everything with me, but when I moved to QRP, I went with that. And I know there's people that have a lot of different QRP rigs, but I'm so happy with my KX2. It's like I'm just going to stick with that as long as I
Yeah, I
can.
actually bought a 705 before I got the KX2 because I was like, well, I can do digital because at that time I was still kind of doing some digital. And
Mhm.
and the 705 is a great rig, but once I got the KX2, I was like, I had to force myself to take the 705 out. So I got rid of the 705 and got a KH1, which I love as well. Although it's back in the
Mhm.
shop right now, it was working fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with the actual RF part of it, but it wasn't showing the right SWR even into a dummy load. So it's back at Elecraft right now being looked at. So hopefully that'll get
Okay.
back to me soon. At least before spring hits, and I can, take because I took that thing to the beach with me when Jill and I went to the beach and sat there on a log and worked POTA with the whip and nothing else. I had the radio with me and nothing else, and it was just a ton of fun. So,
Wow.
but the
So
KX2 is
speaking
my
of
predominant POTA rig, that's for sure.
So speaking of whips, let me tell you about my antennas. So the two antennas that I typically use are, I'm not sure if I'm going to say this right. The Tuflin, is that how it's pronounced?
You did
Tufteln? Is
pronounce
it?
the guy's name right, yes.
Okay, Tuflin. The Tuflin end-fed random wire. I have
Okay.
that. And I love that because it's so, once I get it up in a tree, and that was a whole nother adventure learning how to do that. But I learned how to do that through Thomas's website.
He's a
Once I
master
throw
at
that up,
that.
I
You just
know.
watch
Well,
him, and
I
he's
need to practice it.
you and
I
me
don't
both. You and me both.
because it takes me sometimes several times to get it up there. But I love that because I can effortlessly change bands, and that's so easy to do with the KX2. And then the other one I have is the one that you recommended, the Chelegans MC750.
That's
So
my primary. Yep.
if I go somewhere and I can't put something up in a tree or I don't have time to do it, then I'll pull out the Chelegans and work that. But typically, I'm a wire girl. I tend to go with the end-fed random wire, but you know, half a
And
dozen
it's
one or none.
so. I mean, I've got a. I think I've got a random wire as well, but I've got a couple of end-fed halfways.
Hmm.
And it just depends on which one works better, the whip or that. It really, it's a. I mean, they propagate differently. The
Hmm.
verticals have a better takeoff angle, particularly if you get
Hmm.
in. If you're wanting to get out a ways. Depending on the band you're on, the end feds and the random wires tend to be a little bit more near vertical incident skywaves. So it really just depends, and having the opportunity to have both, can be beneficial because
Hmm.
there's been a couple activations where I'd have them both set up and then I'd kind of switch back and forth between them, and you just get different people with each one. It's kind of amazing.
Right. Now, I shouldn't leave out the AX1. I do have the
I do
AX1.
too.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. I don't love the AX1. I have used it, especially in soda, the couple soda activations. I did that in that trip when I went to North Carolina in July of this past year, and it worked wonderfully. And it redeemed itself with me. And so I keep it in my kit because, like you said, it's nice to have options.
Yeah, you
So
don't
I
have
do use that on occasion.
you don't have to get up very high on a summit, and really it's like magic.
Hmm.
A compromised antenna is no longer compromised because you have that benefit of altitude in your favor. And I found that
Right.
out with the KH1, taking it up on the summit, and it worked great. You know, um,
Huh.
so it's amazing what a little bit of getting up on a hill can do for you. So
Hmm.
so let's talk about keys for a minute. What's your favorite key? Or
Oh,
favorite
that's
type
like
of key, not
asking.
not necessarily the brand, but favorite type of key.
That's like asking what's your favorite child, Bob. I love all my keys. Let's see. Well, I'm actually getting a new key. It's in customs right now in Miami. I ordered the Bama Tech 3,
TP3,
and
love that thing.
I have heard so many wonderful things about that. I have two other paddles that I have used, and one of them stopped working on me. And then the other one, I think it's the connector in the back is an issue and it needs to be dealt with. And I said, you know what? It's time. I'm just going to spend money on a really good paddle. And so I'm really excited about that one because that's going to be my POTA and my main paddle. If I had to choose in my shack in general, I would probably say it's the Cootie.
Hmm.
I love the Cootie. I have a lot of fun with it. And this year I bought a W1 SFR Titan, and he was not making them anymore. But I found out through a friend that he had three bases they discovered. And so he was going to make three more of them. And I said, "Ooh, I'll take that one, please." So
And so, what
I
style of
have one
key
of
is
those in
that?
my shack.
What
What?
what style key is that?
Oh, that's the Cootie.
Okay,
That's the Cootie. That's the one I'm using right now. So
okay.
I love the Cootie. In fact, since I've gotten it, almost everything I've done on SKCC right now is the Cootie. And I need to get back to my bug. I have a Fratini bug that I like, but I've got to get back to that one as well at some
This
point.
is
So,
new to my shack as of yesterday, and it's brand new. I actually ordered it
mm,
from DX Engineering. It's actually a brand new, and then I got the various speed, and amazingly enough, out of the box, it worked. I didn't have to. I mean, I did make a couple adjustments, like the to make the dits a little, the dwell time on the dits a little longer, so they weren't quite so choppy. But
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing, and I got a lot of work to do. There's going to be quite a few videos on this thing because there's an interest in bugs. For one, they're a fascinating device, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of good content. I know you've done a couple things on them, but I'm gonna do some stuff on the bug because I had a friend give me an old. I mean, I don't remember. I looked it up at one point. It was like from the 20s or 30s, Vibraflex bug, and it was the one with the straight bar instead of the round bar like they are now. And
Mm-hmm.
not knowing anything about them at the time, right out of the box, you can't slow them down enough. With that thing all the
Mm-hmm.
way out, it's maybe 25 to 22 words a minute, the slowest. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the nice thing about the very speed. I could get it slower than I want it,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah. So pretty excited about the bug. That's my newest adventure there.
Mm-hmm.
So
I do have an old key. Do you want me to go get it and I will show it to you?
sure,
Can I do that real quickly?
yeah. Yep. Tara will be right back.
That's right. So I need to pull.
Oh,
This
yeah.
one was given to me. This is an old guy.
Yep.
That's
That's
a
the
lightning.
Yep, I think that's the same style. Well, no, it's a little different, but it had the flat bar and the square weight on it like that. Now I didn't have the
Right.
extension on it like you've got, but it
So
was
this is a lightning from 1930, if you can
yeah,
believe it. This key is almost 100 years old,
I
which I
know.
think is really cool.
Yeah.
And I need to, he's been sitting on the shelf. I shouldn't call it he. It's been sitting on the shelf, and I need to, I
Well,
think I'm going to
you
try
can't
to
call it he until you
get
give
it
it a
back on.
name.
Oh, that's true. Well,
Yeah, once
I did call it a name. I called it the dragon before.
Oh, okay.
The
Okay.
dragon. So anyway, so I need to put this back on the air this year because I think it
Nice.
would be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got. I mean, I don't know if you saw Forrest's video the other day. He did like a short or something, but he had all his keys out, and that guy's. I mean, I thought I had a sickness when it came to keys. No,
Oh my
he takes it
word.
to a new level. Forrest's going to be on this show coming up here before long, and that'll certainly be a topic of our conversation.
Right,
Is
right.
keyitis because.
You know what, though? I would encourage your audience to pick up a new key. There's so many people that tend to get stuck in straight key or they only do paddle. And there's something about trying different keys.
Yeah.
It's like playing different instruments, and the code feels differently, at least to me it does, with different keys. And it's just another way to expand the hobby.
Yeah.
It's just another thing to do.
Plus, it's another excuse to have toys to play with because every time you get a new key, you got to play with it, and that's going to get you on the air.
Oh, when I first got into ham radio and I got my CW Moore straight key, which is still the straight key that I use today, I thought to myself, when I saw people with all keys, I thought, oh, come on. Who needs more than one key? Really? Well,
Yeah,
now I know why. You need more than one key. I
you
don't know
do.
if you need as many keys as Forrest has, but you need quite a few keys.
Yeah. Well, him, and he's even got the Bengali bug, the Intrepid, which I'm envious of. Although I don't think I'm going to buy one, but that's a nice looking bug too. I've had the fortune of having good friends that have Bengalis. And a matter of fact, I've got one on my shack workstation right now that's Contour. I think it is Bengali Contour. I might be getting that right. Dave AG7SM is kind enough to and actually this is the Traveler in here that he loaned me that I got to take out and try, and that was a lot of fun to work. I'll tell you what, they're expensive, but when you actually get your hands on one, they're worth it. If you
Mhm.
really enjoy CW and you like CW keys, they're not for everybody because they are expensive,
Mhm.
and some people don't want to
Mhm.
spend that kind of money, and I get it. There again, you gotta find what part of ham radio and you got to decide what am I willing to spend money on and what am I not willing to spend money on. So
Right. I I usually recommend new people try something simple like a CW Morse key. Try something 3D printed until you really get a feel for what it is that you like. And because if I got more expensive keys when I first started, I don't think I would have appreciated them.
Yeah.
But as you get further along, when you get a nice key, you go, wow, this is awesome to use this key. It feels so effortless. So, yeah, start simple, but then feel free to branch out
Yeah.
because it's you can have a lot of fun with new
So
keys.
when you started with CW, what type of key did you start with? Did you start with a straight key or a paddle, or what did you start with?
I started with the straight key because the organization that I was taking classes with basically said the paddle was the devil. So I I could not I was not supposed to use the paddle. And I stayed away from it for the longest time. But I did finally embrace it because I saw a lot of people doing POTA with it. And I thought, you know what? I want to try to do this. And so I started learning it and it did become my POTA key. Interestingly enough, though, this last trip that I took to Southwest Georgia, and I'm getting ready to release some articles and some videos on that, the two paddles I took gave me problems. And I had just taken my straight key because it was straight key night, January 1st. And I ended up using the straight key for the rest of my activation. So, you know, who knows?
Yeah. I when it comes to the SKCC stuff and straight key stuff, I tend to right now gravitate just towards the straight key. But now that I got the
Mhm.
bug, once I get a little bit more confident in it, I don't have to be perfect, but I would be such a mess right now that I'm not ready to use it yet. But it won't be long. It won't be long because I like I said, I've learned a long time ago that perfection in CW doesn't really exist. And so
Mhm.
you keep learning, and the only way you're going to get better is to use the stuff that you have and use those skills that you have. And so it'll be on the air soon. It'll be on the air soon. Matter of fact, Dave said that he would be my first victim to get on the air and do the bugs because we can do it in a rag 2 session that we can just chuckle about later.
Good. Good for you.
So well, Teri, anything else you want to share before we wrap up here?
Don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. I would never have done all the things that I've done. Um, like the QRP. You asked why I went QRP. I went QRP with POTA because my family was going to Nova Scotia. And I thought I had read that the previous year Thomas had done that. He had gone to Canada and activated. And I thought, why can't I? I'm going to try it. And I may fail miserably at it. And my first two activations I were not successful, but let's go for it. So don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. That's the way you're going to grow. That's the way you're going to learn. And hopefully the other hams in this hobby, we're supposed to embrace one another. We're supposed to be encouraging and supportive. So step out there and go for it. And you might find something new that you really enjoy. You never know.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah, that's sage advice. You know, anything you do, regardless whether it's CW or anything in life, is you've gotta push the bounds of your comfort to be able to excel at it. So, well, Terry, thank you very much. It's been great having you on the show, and we will look forward to talking to you soon on the radio. So,
All right.
all right,
Thank you,
thanks,
Bob.
Terry. So, thanks everybody for sticking with us. And 73, this is WV7W.